Hi everyone, so we're going to go through the 4-2 working together and on your own problem. As always, feel free to skip this or even just use it as a check for your answers. Here we go. We are going to be working on posting the separate amounts of each line of the journal that need to be posted individually. So just a reminder, when we post individually, we do not care about the special amount columns, sales and cash. We're only focused on these general amount columns. And I've broken it down into each specific ledger. So the first ledger that we have is the accounts receivable ledger. And there are two different accounts receivable items that we need to post. So I'm going to start with this top one. And if I take a look, this is in March and it's on the 9th. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the month March and on the 9th. And the post reference tells me what journal page I come from. So this is page 1. So I'm getting this information on page 1. Now, if I look at the 9th, it is $163 in the debit column. So in the debit column, I have 163. Now I need to figure out the balance. The balance was 0, and that means I just get to add on whatever I had. So 0 plus a debit of 163 would mean I have a debit of 163. And the last thing I need to do is take this account number, 120, and I need to cross it up here and mark down that I have posted it. So I posted this amount to ledger 120. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do the 16th. So I'm going to mark down the date is the 16th. This is still coming from page 1 of the journal. So I can drop down page 1. And the 16th is $100. And that's in the credit column. So I'm going to do $100 in the credit. At this point, I have a previous balance that was a debit of 163 and a new number that I'm posting, which is a credit of 100. When I have things in the opposite column, I'm going to pick the column that has the bigger number. So that's why I'm posting into the debit column here, because 163 is bigger than 100. And when they're opposite, I'm going to subtract. So 163 minus 100 is 63. And then the final thing I need to do is say that this 120 is where I posted that number to. So I'm going to move on, and my next one that I'm going to do is supplies. And so this is March, and it's on the 4th. So I've got March 4th, and this comes from page 1 of the journal. And then I can see on March 4th, this is a debit of $78. Because I have no previous balance, I just get to add it to 0. So 78 plus 0 is 78. And then the final thing I need to do is take this 130 and drop it in the post reference column, because that's telling me that this number is posted to ledger 130. The same process goes for prepaid insurance. This is on March 3rd. So I can drop down March 3rd. This information is coming from page 1 of the journal. So that's my post reference. And if I look at March 3rd, prepaid insurance is a debit of 660. So I put 660 here. 660 plus 0, since the very first one, is $660. I am now up to accounts payable, and I've got one on March 4th and March 15th. They're both coming from page 1 of the journal. So I'm going to drop in March. The first one is on the 4th. It's coming from page 1. If I look at the 4th, this is a credit of $78. So 78. And I have no previous balance, so I just get to add it to 0. So credit of 78 plus 0 is a credit of 78. My next thing I need to do is I'm done posting that, so I'll take it and I'll write, I posted that to ledger 210. Now I'm ready to do the 15th, and that also comes from page 1 of the journal. On the 15th, this is a $50 debit, so I'm going to drop $50 here. Now I'm at the point where I have a previous balance that's a credit and a previous balance that's a debit. So when they're different, I choose the column with the bigger number. So 78 is bigger than 50, so I'm posting it to the credit column. And when they're different, I subtract. So 78 minus 50 is going to be 28. And then I'll finish off by saying this ledger 210 is where I posted that $50 to. I'm going to move on to capital. There's only one and it's on the 1st. So March 1st. This again is coming from page 1 of the journal. And it looks like it's a credit of 5,000. 0 plus 5,000 is 5,000. I have one drawing. It's on March 25th. Still on page 1 of my journal. If I look at the drawing, it is a debit of $1,000. And $1,000 debit plus 0 debit is $1,000 debit. And I posted that to account number 320. So this $1,000 is on 320 for the ledger. And the final one I have is the rent expense. This is on March 12th. March 12th. It's on page 1 of the journal. This is a debit of $375. The debit of $375 plus 0 is a debit of $375. And then I can take my 510 and I can mark that I posted this number 375 into ledger 510.